This video is past tense by about a month, delayed, and I filmed on the 16th sitting here, nervous about out there what was going on, and because of that I took my camera and went investigating myself to the Brooklyn Center Police Department. And previously to this, I made the mistake of going to the wrong police station, thinking, wow, there's not that big of a commotion here at this police station. I think everything got cleaned up. Well, I was at the wrong police station is what happened. And then I found myself at the correct police station eventually and decided to go and ask people what happened the day before when it was reported the outer perimeter was breached, then reconstructed, and then breached, and then reconstructed. And that was misleading because, well, I found out, I talked to this one gentleman, and he explained very simply. Some of us were hanging out, some of us were up at the wall, and a lot of us were taking a knee and just protesting. Very simple, peaceful protesting. And the young gentleman, does it matter what color skin he has? Does it matter? That's an interesting question you should be asking yourself when you're hearing a story like this. He said that, yeah, the perimeter was breached, but it was just a lone group of people that just pushed down the fence. They just kind of got undone the ties and pushed one little section of the fence down, and that made it technically a breached fence. I'm making a special notice that a lot of what I'm saying from here on or so is based upon me asking one person what happened at the perimeter of the fence on this particular night in question. This is important because what news agencies and reporters do is they'll just reference somebody who said something. And that's basically what I'm doing in this video. I'm referencing somebody's perspective and what they said. I have no proof of what they said is true. I'm going upon my very simple, rudimentary investigative skills to find out what happened, which is the same as what I would do if I go onto the internet and look up something that is based upon me assuming that what I read was true, which is the exact same thing that happened for me from my perspective when I went down to the Brooklyn Center police station and asked what happened. It's the same credibility as far as I'm concerned with asking somebody who was there as opposed to asking the internet what happened there. So I want to acknowledge that, and hopefully that helps everybody when they view news articles and stuff on the internet. So then it could be reported that it was a breached fence and it just got picked up again by somebody or guards or whatnot, and that meant that they had the right, they meaning the law enforcement had the right or go ahead, I guess. Again, you can use so many words on this and still be correct but have a completely different story to it. They could use tear gas, and I don't know exactly how much tear gas or whatnot, but there were numerous reports of tear gas being used throughout the days or whatever. But the point is all that fear that I felt filming here and knowing that something was going on across the way, looking it up, and it being reported as the fence was breached, very, very, not scornfully, not dramatically, but just very matter of fact. The perimeter was breached, and it's misleading because a couple punks pushing a fence down, and there was a question about whether they were punks or it was set up to be that way. The gentleman I talked to at the Brooklyn Center police station mentioned he had a concern that he thought that somebody might have instigated the fence being pushed down in order to start something and make something happen so that police could open tear gas and flashbangs, possibly rubber bullets on the crowd. And I don't have any proof of this at all. It's just that's something I heard from this fella, and he referenced that that's what he felt like because everybody else had a great attitude there and were in good spirits and peacefully protesting, and then there was these several outliers who had a different agenda. My main point of this is when you read something, it could be, yeah, the truth, but it could be worded in a way that makes it more dramatic and possibly more terrifying and possibly push somebody to think a certain way about something. So that's something you or anyone should be concerned about when you apply your knowledge to watching news stories of any kind. And I always remind myself, and I remind people, I can zoom in and crop out whatever I want as a photographer and then bring that to you and say, look, I could show you a photo where there's lots of people by the fence, and I can show you a photo where there's no people by the fence. I can show you a photo where there's lots of guards and there's not any guards at all. And I can show you where the numbers are completely skewed, meaning more protesters to police because I cropped and angled a certain way. Or what I could do is show an over exuberant amount of police presence against a small crowd just because of how I angled or cropped. That's a very important thing that I do, is filter my knowledge of what, it's not immense, but I do have some knowledge where as a photographer, I can see in the news, I can see like, oh, I think they cropped something out there. So I'll take it, yeah. When I first arrived at the Brooklyn Center police station, I didn't take too many pictures right away. I took a couple, and I walked around to get the kind of idea of what was going on and the attitude of people and how promiscuous of photos I should do. Meaning, should I just photograph everything and everyone, or keep a little tone down of photos and not necessarily be sneaky, because when you're sneaky it makes people nervous about photos. So I usually just have my camera very present in my arm, cradled, and you can see me a mile away that I have a camera. And I did go up to the fence to get an idea of what the police and National Guard presence was and how everything was arranged. And standing by the fence, as I approached it, I couldn't help but just guess at which, not necessarily protester, but somebody there, boy, what name would I give somebody standing by a protester? A concerned citizen. I was trying to guess at which concerned citizen put too much soap in their laundry, because as I approached the fence, there was a strong smell of somebody over detergentized their clothes, and it was, you couldn't miss it. I looked to my left and looked to my right, and I was trying to figure out which person around me would overdo their laundry with too much soap. And it wasn't until I focused on the fence that I saw all the air fresheners. And I laughed at my ability to assess a situation. It was the air fresheners that I was smelling, and they were plentiful. And I don't think I will ever experience such a mixture of scents and smells that normally wouldn't be combined unless you're at the air freshener factory, possibly. And I wonder how they get through the day and then every moment after. As I was photographing, I tried to be careful of children. There were children there, and some were just like little megaphones, and they were dressed up, and they were camouflaged enough where I could photograph them and show their picture, but I don't really want to do that without blurring. The idea of parents positioning their kids to be in a protest, that idea has been talked about before. Meaning, should parents push their agenda on children? And my response when I first heard of this idea was very simple. It's like, well, let a child be 18 and then let them decide whether they want to protest or something or not, because they could be photographed in something they disagree with later in life. And then I thought about it, and parents make decisions for kids, their children, quite often throughout their whole childhood, up until 18 and sometimes after, and decisions even on whether they should get vaccinated or not, and more complicated questions even about whether the kid should be aborted or not. So these are serious, these are things that parents do present onto their kids throughout their whole childhood. So why not go to a protest and bring the kids along and have them shout something and show something peaceful? Because when I was about to go to the Brooklyn Center police station, and this is important, I think, for a point, when I was going to go there, I was like, what do I expect? I'm pretty sure everything's going to be relaxed and chill on the protesting side, which it was. But that thought in my head was like, well, even though I've been to some protests, could it get out of hand? Should I protect myself more than I think? Should I be casual, lackadaisical? And if you, as a parent, bring your child to a protest young at age and a couple times here and there, or whatever you decide, then when it comes time to a situation where, like me as a grown-up, I think I'm grown up, when I'm going to a protest, I have previous knowledge going into a protest saying like, okay, well, this is what it's probably going to be like. This is what I can expect. So maybe I'm thinking way differently later in life that it is important to bring a kid to a protest that you hope will be safe for them to be at, and they get a sense of the idea of protesting, that it's not whatever the news brought them, it's what they've experienced through life. Quite often in our lives, we look at TV, we look at media, we look at news, and we think that's the way it is. That dramatic image is the way all of the incidences will be surrounding that type of incident, because I saw a dramatic image or collection of dramatic images on TV or news or whatnot. Not all the times are things so dramatic. It does get intense in life, and the photographers and the videographers are trying to capture that super cropped, intense something. I do it, it happens. Because of this, we as people have this false idea quite often, this is not an absolute, we have a false idea that that is the way it is, when in fact, if you go to some protests, quite often, you'll have experienced things like people just standing around looking at watches saying like, okay, when are we going to start walking? You'll experience people just like, oh, hey, how's it going? What movie did you see the other day? And it's just people standing around talking and interacting, not quite dramatic. Yes, you can find moments where it's like, oh, well, look at that. This guy has a gun and he's waving it around. Oh, this person is yelling at this person. And these are isolated incidences within a whole gatherings of people and played out over time, not as all dramatic. If you are bringing kids, teach them what exactly they're protesting, and you might learn something yourself in why you're protesting. Learn what you're protesting about. I doubt every single person inside of a protest survey would agree on every single topic, but understand what your topics are and in interacting with people. Oh, I like this, and oh, I like that, and oh, but I don't like this, and I don't like that. Well, I hate you, and oh, I hate you too. Understand what your perspective is and be able to share that with other people in a non-dramatic, intense way. Like, oh, you like this, well, I like that, and here's why. I think the point is very clear that you should be experiencing things for yourself and not necessarily what's going on in the news that's been brought to you. Experience things that are generational and live them with everyone else as a community event as much as you can. Don't just take the news narrative at face value or whatever face value they want to present to you. Look at the world on your own and don't settle for what you are being told to settle on.